So this is an experiment. We're seeing what we can do about projecting audio and having a conversation like a podcast in the middle of public. And so here we go.
All right, cool.
I love
Uh,
it.
I'm gonna be doing some like audio stuff. If you can stay a little close to the mics, that would maybe be helpful.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. What's up? How are you doing?
Doing good. Nice to be live from the Long Meadow.
Yeah, live from the Long Meadow. That's
I
great.
love this.
This is so funny.
It is fun.
For everybody that's tuning in on Zoom, thanks for bearing with us with tech issues and stuff. When you do new, as you probably both get this, when you do new stuff, there's going to be
It's a learning curve.
The process.
a process. So whether you're here in person or online, there's a Zoom link that you can go to and then listen in your headphones. And that'll be the thing that people can do. I'll be pausing to explain this on occasion to people who are showing up. Or Sarah, our wonderful producer, can do that. Sweet. If you have any questions, Tiffany's on Zoom. Thank you for being here. She's our host for the day and is helping out. And I'm going to do the intro now.
All right.
First, I just want to say thanks so much for both of you being here. I'm such huge fans of your work and the things that you do. And so thanks for being here for this conversation. This series of conversations will be on art as infrastructure, that there's lots of things that we need as a society to thrive. And art is one of the biggest examples of what we can do as individuals to create infrastructure for a thriving society. So that's this. And we have Charlie Todd, founder of Improv Everywhere, and I'm sure like a bunch of other things, which I'm curious to hear about.
Mostly improv everywhere, but yeah, excited to be here. I like that thesis statement.
And Claire Feuer. Am I saying your last name right?
Feuer.
Oh, yeah. And you're the founder of the Subway Social Club,
Yes.
which is a social club for everyone that rides the subway. It's quite fun.
Yes. Thank you. And so great to be here. Love your work as well. Both of your works.
And I'm Matthew Chavez. I did subway therapy, and I'm the one and only person that's on Art Plus People's payroll, if we can call it that. Sweet. So, yeah, I was hoping that you could, on both of your websites, I read your bios, and it seems like a through line is that you're activating strangers, creating joy, like in random moments, and bringing people together through experiences, activations. I'm not exactly sure what you'd call them, but I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what got you interested in doing that work in the first place. Was it something that was always in you? And then I'm curious, what was your first thing that you did that sort of like got you working your way towards what you're doing now?
Well, I'm from South Carolina, and the South is very socially friendly, or at least surface level friendly, and has all kinds of issues beneath the surface in a lot of parts of the South. But I grew up, and I went to college in North Carolina, but I grew up with that culture where, like, if you pass someone and on a path in a park and it's just the two of you, like, there's gonna be a smile and maybe like a little nod or something to sort of that friendliness.
Hmm.
And when I first moved to New York, I was, New York City was alien to me, and I kind of missed that. I was fascinated by being on a subway car, and this directly relates to what you do, Claire. But being on that subway car, and it's like there's like 40 of us here, and we're all sitting here, but everybody, this is early 2001, so everybody's on a book or a magazine or the Village Voice or something. We didn't have phones, but everyone was sort of isolated in their own bubbles, and I got excited about the idea of what if I could create things that would break people out of that routine, get people to talk to each other and have a shared experience. So that's how the first No Pants Subway Ride came about in
Right.
January of 2002. And I just did a series of, not exclusively on the subway, but in public spaces like the subway. And I had some, trial and error too. Like I did a couple of things that were a little more conflict based. And I just realized early on that it's too easy. Like anybody can board a subway car and then have their friend, board the subway car adjacent to it and then come join your car and pretend like you don't know each other and get into an argument, or you can cause a scene in a negative way with almost no effort and no creativity, but it spreads a bad vibe around. So I started thinking of, well, what can I do that would make people look up from their books and they would laugh and smile and their day would be better because of it. And that was not just, because there's other examples of that in terms of busking. And sometimes it's nice when three guys with guitars get on. And sometimes I enjoy a Showtime performance. I kind of enjoy all subway performances, pro Showtime.
I'm pro Showtime.
But, I think a lot of people, it's transactional, right? So, those people, they're busking, they're asking something of you. And I wanted to create something where people wouldn't even realize it had been a performance, that it was just a story.
Well, I love that. And I also love how the subway has kind of captivated you, and how you've also given back to the subway through your work. I grew up in New York City and Brooklyn and riding the subway. I would commute for school, middle school and high school, and it was, as a New Yorker, you don't really drive as much. So it was the way I got around. And, I have a mom who has worked for the MTA. And, I always, I think I go back to kind of one situation that happened that was very traumatic when I was like very young. I was 14, and I basically woke up to, going a little bit dark right now, into a man kind of seeking refuge in my room from the police. And in that moment, as I came out of shock and fear, I thought about what I could do. And I had two options. I thought I could scream and awake my father and cause a ruckus, or I could have a conversation. And in that moment, I invited the stranger to come closer to me, to sit down, and just kind of asked him some basic questions, like what his favorite color was, compliment his shoes. And I think at 14, I realized the power of conversation and how connecting with people can really transform a negative space into one that is so beautiful and so life-changing. And from 14 on, I'm now 29, so I've had 15 years of kind of tapping into conversation and kind of perfecting and working on my skill. But I realized, I start to think about where are other places that are so silent, that can be potentially transformed in a way that's meaningful and life-changing. And I thought the subway is a great place to do that because of the interaction. And I think also, Charlie, you mentioned coming from South Carolina, and this norm of friendliness and socialness. And, I think a lot of people who come to New York, they come from places where it's a lot more social and it's actually the norm. And, I think a lot of times we just don't talk because we assume that other people won't talk back, or won't talk with us. And so I think it's also kind of opening up and acknowledging that a lot of people are actually very friendly, and that shutting ourselves kind of inward sometimes is a learned behavior.
Yeah, and I think you come from a smaller community, and I'm sure there's small towns in New York State that are equally friendly as they are in the South. It's not just a Southern thing, but just the number of people you see per day in a small town is just completely blown out of the water when you come to New York. Just it would be exhausting to have a nod and a smile with every single person you pass down, on an avenue in Manhattan. So I've lived here for 20 years now. I've come to adjust, and I get it. And I'm not looking for a smile constantly, but I still have moments like, well, I'm walking in Central Park in the Ramble, and it's just one other person, and I'm gonna say good morning, and why not? And it's a nice, brief connection. Sometimes a New Yorker might look at you like you're crazy, but sometimes it's nice. And to me, those moments of personal connection are just so special in the city. Like the highlight of my day, one day last week, is I was walking through the Ramble in Central Park, and I found $20 on the ground. It was like a stack of like a 10 and 2 5s just on the ground. And at first I looked to see if it was a police sting, because sometimes cops will put money on the ground, and if you take it and walk away, you can get in trouble. It is not legal to just take money. You have to try to turn it in or whatever. But I left it there. I was like, well, somebody's gonna come back for it. And then I just sort of started jogging up the path, because no one was around at all. And I went by one couple walking. I was like, did you leave any money? And they were like, no. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And it was like not a great interaction. I kept walking. saw this other woman walking by herself. She had her headphones in, and I was like, I'm gonna be a crazy person again, but I did it anyway. And I said, did you happen to leave money? And she stopped and like checked her pocket. She was like, yes. And I was like, run, it's back there. She was like, thank you, and ran away. And it just made my day. And I love being able to have just little unexpected moments with strangers are bring me a lot of joy and just sort of kind of have impact on my day.
When was the first time, Claire, that you went out and did Subway Social Club? Or maybe a better question is, I'm assuming you had lots of conversations with random people on the subway, which is that what gave you the idea?
Not really actually. So it's February, or it's actually October 2019, and I mean, I think is right. Yeah, so it's right before the pandemic and or started, but there was just this beautiful man who had this just kind of like this crazy gorgeous like hat on, like you could just like tell like, Williamsburg on the L train, and I just wanted to know more about the hat. And I was like pacing for like 4 minutes. I was like, should I talk to him? Like, no, that's just weird. Like, don't do that. And the hat kind of like covered his eyes, so I couldn't like see what he looked like or his expression. And but I was so intrigued. And on my wrist, I have tattooed MTW, which stands for More Than Wonder, because a lot of times I realized as a curious person, I would sometimes not follow through, and it would stick with me. I was like, I should have
Mm.
asked that question. So I looked at my tattoo and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I went and just complimented his hat. And it turns out he's an artist. His name is Free from California, and he was visiting, kind of doing a residency. And then he invited me with his friends to the Guggenheim Museum to kind of take over the Guggenheim with him and wear his clothing and his artwork, which is very kind of Basquiat kind of esque. And I realized that interaction happened because I went up to him,
Mm.
and I just thought about the other opportunities of what could happen, what can unfold. And it's really this sort of magical feeling that was unleashed, I think, for both parties, and this opportunity. And I think
Mm.
that was the first conversation that kind of led me to, because I thought the Subway Social Club would really just be like a blog about art and the subway, and then kind of shifting it to about people.
Mm.
And that was kind of the first conversation that encouraged me, inspired me to continue to have conversations.
Mm. So you have the conversation, you then go and write about it.
So I had the conversation. I didn't think about writing it,
Mm.
but then I had the magical experience at the Guggenheim.
Right, right, right.
And that experience, I was like, I need to write about it. I need to share it. Like, if this happened to me, imagine how many other people these interactions could happen to. And it was very just life changing. Then I just started talking to other people, kind of like chasing this high of like, who can I meet? Who can like what can I learn? And what opportunities will kind of um, unleash? And I mean, like, here we are sitting in Prospect Park
Yeah,
and
totally.
talking to Charlie Todd and Matthew Chavez. So yeah, I mean, it's been wonderful. And you really especially in New York, I think anywhere, you never know who you'll meet and the connections and like what can happen, the magic that pursues.
Do you have like a I guess I'd call an experience like that an attractor, where like ideas come all of a sudden flow around something that has gravity, this moment that has gravity in your life. And I'm wondering, do you have something similar? I know there's probably an amalgamation of all of the things that you were thinking about and experiences sort of led to the No Pants Subway ride. But was there like a one moment?
That started things. I
Yeah,
mean,
or were you just like, okay, I'm gonna call this Improv Everywhere now, or this is like actually a thing?
yeah, I mean, I had done a few bizarre things with friends, in bars. I mean, the very first thing I ever did is I impersonated the musician Ben Folds in a bar, which was just a silly. I was out one night with a college friend. I'd lived in New York City for less than 1 month, and he thought I looked like Ben Folds based on a new shirt I bought at H&M. So I said, okay, and I also do theatrical improv, comedy improv. So the concept of yes and, of just like taking something that somebody gives you and going with it and saying, let's see if we can, turn that up to 11. So we went to a bar and I entered by myself and he entered like 10 minutes later. And 15 minutes went by and I drank alone at the bar, and he came up to me and said, "Oh, you're Ben Folds. I'm a big fan." And I gave him an autograph. And again, this is 2001, so no iPhone, no Google image search. And then that night was this sort of magical night where the people that were sitting next to me all of a sudden wanted to talk to me, and the bartender gave me free drinks, and I had this like great experience that was positive, and it was sort of a con, but I didn't get anything. Like I guess I got a free drink or two, but I tipped well, and I didn't ask for the girl's phone number, or I disappeared, and there was no reveal moment either, and that got me really excited of doing these unusual things, these undercover performances, and not having a big "you're on candid camera, you got punked, here's the cameras."
Totally.
And I do that stuff too now sometimes, where by the nature of what we do, it has to be revealed at the end. But
Right.
I love the purity of like just going and doing something that's a little weird and giving somebody this experience of, I hung out with mildly famous musician Ben Folds and famous musician Ben Folds in a bar. And then also I figured if they went home and they did Google it and found out he was on tour in Australia that night, then that's still like, that's a wild experience too. Like,
Totally.
who was that guy?
Right.
For the rest of your life, you're going to wonder who that weird guy was.
What was he doing?
Yeah. Why did he talk to me for 45 minutes? But I guess my spark was I told that story that I just told you guys over and over again to like every friend who would listen to me for the week after that happened, because
Uh-huh.
it was a big impactful thing for me. And then I decided to write it down, and then I needed a website, so I got geocities.com/improv everywhere, and later improveverywhere.com, which I've always regretted the choice of the name, just because it's highly orchestrated and choreographed events, specifically in public spaces in New York. So the improv and the everywhere frustrate people sometimes. But that first moment, the first things I was doing, it very much was on the spot. Like, oh, you think I look like this guy? Great, let's go. Let's improvise something.
So maybe you could call it fabrication everywhere.
but I guess somewhat similar to you, just the act of like writing it down and then publishing and putting it out there. I saw a roadmap of like, I should do more things, and now I have
Yeah.
a website, so let's do the next thing and just keep doing things. And the first couple of years, I mean, I would do like every other week, I would try to do something. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And I've slowed way down and over the course of 20 years, but and the quality's gone up too.
I was gonna say, you had a really amazing project with Disney.
Yeah.
You did the most socially distanced office. Have you seen this?
I did. I was cracking up the entire time.
Oh, thank you.
If somebody wants to put, maybe Tiffany, if you want to put a link, if you Google the world's most socially distanced
Yeah, or
office.
New York's most socially distant office.
Yeah, there's this really incredible. What do you call it? Is it an activation? It's like a public art piece.
Yeah, stunt.
A
Yeah.
stunt. There's this amazing stunt that Charlie did, where they. Do you want to describe
Sure,
it?
sure.
Describe it.
So
It's so good.
So I was with the Tideland Institute, which is Nathan Austin and Danielle Isadora. And Nathan, you might know, he did like the speakeasy in a water tower. He's done a lot of like site-specific, incredible trespass-based projects. And I was talking with him and was interested in doing something, collaborating. We're talking about ways we could collaborate, because his new focus is on doing things that's on the water. And he had a raft, and we were thinking, well, what could we put on a raft? Well, everybody's working from home, so maybe we could create like a socially distanced office. And so we put this raft with all this like very like mediocre office furniture that we got for free from my friend who's an office furniture liquidator and also a performer with Improv Everywhere, Jesse Good. And Jesse ended up playing the employee out on the raft. We parked this raft right near Brooklyn Bridge Park, in between the Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan Bridge, and just had a guy out there working. And it was
So
super
good.
fun, because boats would go by and react to them. Everybody on the shore was trying to figure it out. It was cool.
So good.
So fun.
And mostly it was a observer. People weren't like interacting with that particular work.
Yeah, I mean, people on boats were talking to him. I mean, there
Oh,
were,
really?
Yeah, there were people on jet skis and boats that were having nice interactions with them.
Yeah.
And he was on a live Zoom call. There was a lot of tech that went behind it, because we had a like Verizon router out there,
Yeah.
and a working Mac Mini connected to a monitor, and I had 12 other Improv Everywhere volunteers who were just at home Zooming with this guy. So he had like the most amazing Zoom background of Lower Manhattan.
That's so incredible. So what this makes me think of is production. Charlie, obviously the works that you produce like that work, there was what? How many people worked on it? Would you say?
I mean, that was small scale for us because we had no funding for it at all
Okay.
beyond what I wanted to spend to do something during the pandemic and
Yeah.
express myself. But yeah, but it's still, we have, I partner with a production company called Diverge. We made the Pixar show for Disney together, and we work on stuff for commercials sometimes, and then it's everything for our YouTube channel, everything that's just for fun, just for art as well. But yeah, it's,
Tens of people, hundreds of people.
I would say tens of people on our big projects. I mean, we've done things that have 100 performers plus 60 crew members for sure. And then we just did something on Friday that I can't talk about yet because it's not out.
Can't wait.
Nice.
But our first thing in a while. But it had, I think there was probably like 5 crew members
Okay.
but about 100 performers. So
Wow.
yeah.
So from you grew into a much larger team that was then producing works.
Yeah.
And then for you, are you still one now? Do you have staff?
No, I'm still one, but hopefully this year we'll be growing. But we have about like I'd say 2,000 and change like members.
Sweet.
And that's people that have bought the pen. And
I've given a lot of pins out,
Yeah.
but definitely people have also like purchased pins. Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of
that's
pins have
awesome.
been purchased. Yeah.
has it been challenging this year with people maybe not wanting to get close to people on the subway?
Not
Just
at
where
all.
I was gonna
Yeah,
go.
not at all. I mean, I think it's become more evident that like people do desire connection. So people are actually even kind of like even friendlier, I'd say. But it has kind of, because of the pandemic and because of the masks, I've learned that smiles, you can tell it like in the eyes, really.
Mhm.
But also that talking isn't the only way to express connection or to express. I mean, you alluded to earlier, just like that simple nod. So the pandemic has helped me understand that there are other types of ways that people show their camaraderie, whether it's holding the door for someone or just kind of waving or nodding, and that signs of appreciation and connection aren't always just verbal.
Hmm.
I used to be a pretty big Star Trek fan, and I still like Star Trek. Just don't actively watch it all the time. But my mother-in-law got me a shirt that says Trekkie a few years back, and I wear it. It's in my rotation of T-shirts that I wear, and sometimes I'll forget that I'm wearing it. But I was walking down the mall in Central Park, and I had a guy just give me the Vulcan
Yes.
salute, and I forgot I was wearing the shirt for a second. I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh yeah, gave it back to him, and I'm also a big fan of Fish and the Grateful Dead. Those 2 jam bands, and whenever I see somebody with like a Fish shirt, I try to like say like, you got tickets to the next show, or, I try to make some kind of just brief conversation, because it is, that's another way. I mean, it's interesting, like wearing the pen, like putting something on your body that says, I want to talk about this, or I'm interested in this, and I love being able to just sort of wear my interest on my shirt so that someone with common interests might talk to me.
So when I think about art as infrastructure, that's exactly the type of thing, like that creative vision, I think is the type of thing that I'd like to see a lot more of, or just more people participating in it, right? Like if there were more people that had those pins, that have more access to conversation, I have more access to opportunity, I'd have all sorts of things could happen as a result. And I think I would just love to see more of it. I would love to see more of your work too. If I saw something, maybe okay, here's a question. Do you think it would be as interesting if you were doing it every day, or is it the scarcity, it happens like once a month?
I think as long as the idea is different, as long as it feels fresh and new every time. I don't know. The scarcity thing is tough. I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on us. I mean, because we come from the YouTube world. I mean, I was doing these things in the early 2000s before YouTube, and then I had a backlog of like, mini DV tapes when YouTube launched. So I had a bunch of content. But our fan base on YouTube is just, they're so mad at us that we put out like, even before the pandemic, we were putting out like 3 videos a year, and most YouTubers are just doing that YouTube grind of every day or 3 times a week or whatever. So whenever we put out a video, people are always like, oh, it's been a year and this is what you did, like, even if it's a great video, it's like, it should be even better because we haven't had a video in a year. So there's that, but I think it does make it special. I mean, the people that came out to participate in the thing that I did on Friday, I think one woman flew from Chicago to be a part of it. And there was, people were just particularly now, excited to be in a crowd again. I mean, that
Yeah.
that felt so special to, I've been on a megaphone giving instructions to a crowd dozens of times over the years, but it felt really cool to do that again.
That's amazing. I'd love to transition to kind of a Q&A. How are we on time? Can someone tell me what time it is? 11:35. Perfect. Also, for anybody that's here in person, you can tune into the Zoom call with some headphones. I see Amir's got the right idea. Or you could play it on the speaker on your phone. I'm assuming you guys can't hear us. You can. Oh, okay. Great. Oh, such powerful voices at the table. Amazing. Sweet. That's true. If there were, you can't see the camera, but there's thousands of people. Listen, so I'm amazed I can all hear. Um, awesome. If anybody online wants to send in a question, feel free. And then Tiffany, I think you can unmute your. You could say like, "Hey, there's a question," or someone can alert me to that. And then in person, does anybody want to come up and ask a question? Join the conversation. Take the hot seat.
If not, I have a comment.
Okay.
Question, or it's more of a comment. But I was watching Charlie a YouTube video, actually one where you're presenting kind of your work, and I loved with the first No Pants subway ride, I think it was, you kind of broke down what was happening and kind of the reaction that the star, the unknown star,
Yeah.
kind of was going through, which I thought was just so powerful and so intriguing because we basically saw her kind of go from reading a book to putting the book away to then connecting with the two, I think, Danish men who were there and kind of laughing, and that progression. And I think it really speaks to, and then you mentioned the work is about kind of bringing people together and creating these moments of what seem to be very spontaneous connection, and it is, and they are for those who are experiencing it, the spontaneous connection of coming together and kind of this magical kind of feeling. And I think that one of my favorite things to do on the subway is when I'm having a conversation, watch as other people just naturally join in or naturally take their headphones out and want to chat. And that feeling, and usually when that happens, I kind of take a step back and I watch it unfold and just kind of think about the power of bringing people together. So I just love I was wondering if that kind of gives you this high of knowing that people are coming together to experiencing it, but also on the production side, the magic of people coming together to really make something beautiful and create this amazing feeling for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I love doing things that cause people to come together and interact and have that shared experience. I mean, the example I always give is that, you on the subway specifically, you're not going to talk to anybody else in the subway typically, unless someone's wearing a pen and or it's you. But I mean, traditionally, and this is what your project's addressing, people are not talking to each other in the subway unless something bad happens, right? So if there is, an unstable person in the car and people are a little scared, then you start making eye contact with other people. If the train's like been stuck between stations for more than a minute, might start to say things even 10 minutes. Some people start talking out loud, interacting with each other, and it just dawned on me that it's only the bad things that cause us to interact with each other. So could we create things that are good, that are so unusual and surprising, that make people have that connection with each other? So that's always been the goal. But for me, I love that moment where she smiles and she shares a smile with the two Danish guys. And my favorite day of the last year was the day that it was announced that Joe Biden won. Although they're still recounting in Arizona, so who knows, guys? But the Joe Biden celebration day, which I think was like the Saturday after the election, and it was just a similar way when Obama won in 2008. Although 2012, no one really cared. But in 2008 and this past November, it was just this magical moment of you could walk through the entire city and everybody was smiling at each other, especially if you're wearing a Joe Biden shirt like I was. But, there was just these great moments of eye contact and smiles. And it was with masks because it was, November and our second wave was kicking in. But like you said earlier, you could see the smiles. You could see in the eyes, the way everybody was happy. And I love those moments where a whole city together. I guess it happens when a sports team wins. There's certain moments like that really cause it, and it's a shame it had to be 4 years of Trump that led to that release and the pandemic. But anything that I can do that creates even a small amount of that, a localized version of that, like for these 20 people, we're all going to smile together. We're all part of this together, and I know you're happy, and it's making me even happier that you're happy.
I love it.
This reminds me, last night I went to this party that was on the roof of my house. I live at Lightning Society. And I've been practicing with mics for this to kind of be ready. And I thought it would be really funny to walk around with 2 mics and 2 sets of headphones and do like, I'm walking through the party with interviews. And it was so fun because it even at a great event where everybody's smiling already and having like fun, it created this extra layer of experience, and it was an audio experience. People were curious, and they were like, "What is happening?" And I'd see that face, and then when I was finished talking with someone, I'd walk up to that person that had that, I'd be like, "Put on these headphones," and they'd put them on, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this!" And it was
awesome.
so fun. And I think in small ways we can create that. And then in larger ways, I like to think that maybe people are looking at what we're doing and thinking, what are they doing?
Yeah.
That's so weird. That's so funny.
I think there is a woman
whatever it
over
is.
there looking over.
Join us on Zoom. It's quite fun. But it wouldn't surprise me if we had a speaker that was amplifying sound, which I didn't want to do for, because I wanted to try and create as non-amplified of an experience for this as possible. So we don't get kicked out. As both of you know, when you do stuff in public, it's a question. But if we had amplified sound, I think people would walk up. There's maybe like, actually be curious about this. There's maybe like this bubble that people walk up right to the edge of, or maybe like just step in a little bit. It's like that curiosity bubble. If they come in, they're gonna get closer to the center. I bet that would happen if there was sound. People would walk close enough to hear just what's going on, and then maybe for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious about that, like liminal space.
I think what's so interesting is how we all have been sort of forced to do outdoor things in the past year. And we got here earlier. There was a meditation class happening over here. There was a yoga class happening over here. Just you walk through all of our parks and you see people doing personal trainers, and everybody's taking. There's a guy getting haircuts in Central Park, and I hope that we keep that to a degree. Like it's great that we're using our public space, using our parks, we're getting together, and I think just as a pedestrian or a cyclist going by, it's just cool to see. It's cool to walk by and see a podcast happening in the middle of a meadow. It's nice.
Yeah.
I agree. Public space for the win.
Come join us. I thought I had an interview mic with me, but I totally don't. I'm gonna step out. It's not a question for me, right?
No, I mean, I guess
Just
you
jump
can still
in.
be a part of it too.
No,
I don't
you
like
enjoy
you
the
off completely. Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, Mike. I'm Lucy.
I'm Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
Claire.
Hey, Claire. Okay, I've seen you on Instagram. I was really fascinated with what was just mentioned about like a comfortable circle, like of a bubble where people are just comfortable enough to like kind of eavesdrop and then go about their business. But how would you construct maybe some kind of like game where like there's like different levels of like interaction, like a low touch, medium touch, high touch, and the high touch is like being in the hot seat, right?
Mm.
So like I wonder, like as far as like bringing people together, what do you imagine like for an in-person or hybrid online event?
Well, a lot of the projects we do, they specifically we will put, I call it bait, in the something to bring people in a public space. And we've done a lot of things where one person really is the star. So for example, we put an orchestra from Juilliard in Greeley Square near 34th Street in Manhattan, and put a platform in front of this orchestra with a big sign on it that just said "Conduct Us" and a little baton. And so that was something where like we're asking, I guess, that's a high touch, like you're going to step up on the platform, you're going to pick up the baton, you're following the instructions, and you're going to conduct an orchestra. And that's not for everybody. Not everybody's not confident enough to do that, but a lot of people were that day. And then once one person does it, of course, like people start lining up to do it, and eventually we have to like cover the sign up and wait a minute, because that's not the point. It's not the point for people just to wait in line to do this experience. It's supposed to be that mystery, and somebody's got to be brave and do it. But I like to construct things like that where one person does get to shine and be the star, and everybody else gets to be a part of it though. You know, that circle forms around and everyone's enjoying it and smiling, and it still is a group experience.
That's a great question, and also thanks for joining and being in the hot seat.
I'm already wearing hot pants, so
Yes.
it's okay. It's
Um,
burning.
it's interesting because I think, you know, we don't, at the Subway Social Club, we don't really have, you know, levels, I think, of um different levels kind of right. You wear a pin, and you're very much saying, I'm open to chatting. And it's a very deliberate action. But what I was saying before about kind of people expressing their desire for communication and wanting to connect in different ways, um, we are going to start doing, because I do realize, like, there, when you have a conversation, typically there are two roles at play if you're just having it with one person, right? There's the initiator who very much like shows that courage outright at the beginning, and then there's also this very active participant who, and it takes also a huge amount of courage to engage this person who's coming and wanting to chat with you, especially if you don't know them. So, and in the subway, where there isn't a lot of space, it can sometimes, if you're not, you know, I talk to a lot of people who don't wear pins to share the club, can sometimes feel a bit like, what is going on? I think part of it is just learning how to have a conversation, how to kind of like improve some skills. So we're going to be starting to do kind of one-on-one, like with me, and small group kind of conversation how to's that will actually start above ground, and not in the subway, to really kind of get people, you know, really kind of like starting to understand how they interact with themselves, but also how they put themselves out there. And then there'll be different levels. We'll start above ground with just kind of the physical, like waving and like nodding and those type of cues to help people kind of gain confidence in themselves and connection. And slowly we're gonna go down to the subway. So that is kind of, I don't know if that really answered your question, but different levels. And then the highlight will be kind of, can you do this now in the subway?
So you're teaching people how to smile and wave, basically, or like, or are you going in?
Well, I think so. We're going to start doing kind of like one-on-one or small group classes. I think even that's just a step in itself, saying, hey, like, I want to kind of improve, like, or not improve, but kind of dig into, you know, how I have conversations and connect. And so it's really kind of working on that like small talk, and kind of gaining our confidence back when doing it.
I feel like things like this like work really well when there's like some kind of event that brings people together specifically.
Yeah,
Like if you were in a concert and you're like, okay, now we're in a concert hall and no one's supposed to be talking, but like if you just bring the subway club in and then everyone starts like,
Yeah,
you know,
maybe like in the middle of a
intermission.
we'll kind of go in. How do you feel about that? Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I have that feeling at concerts too. Like, you know, especially if it's a general admission concert and you're standing next to all these people, and it's, you know, it's one of my favorite bands that I'm seeing. I know we have a common interest. We all
Yeah.
paid $40 to be here, you know, so I like trying to meet the person next to me. Like, how long have you been a fan? How many shows have you seen? And it's nice to be able to spark those conversations.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, actually, I have another question. Can I? I'm sorry, I'm taking over. Okay. There should be rules. Okay. Have you guys talked about collaborating, and what ways do you guys have things in common, or like experimenting with each other, or like how would you do that?
Well, we just met.
We just met.
But yeah, I mean, I love your work, Claire, and I think there's so much in common in terms of the stage that we use, which is this way. I mean, so many of the projects done have been on the subway. I think probably maybe the thing that's most similar to what you do is we did a talk show on the subway once, a late night talk show where the guests of the talk show were just the people on the subway. So we had a, you know, Conan O'Brien type host, and a backup band and a big giant desk and a backdrop. But he said, "Please welcome my next guest, the woman with the red sweater." And then, you know, maybe that woman would say yes and walk over. And so we just interviewed regular people. But it basically was that. It was a, you know, conversation with this big thematic thing behind it. But yeah, I think we have so much in common in terms of bringing people together.
Yeah, I'd love to collaborate in any way. I mean, I love the subway, I love your work, and just in general, it's. I mean, I think to be shamelessly honest, I think I was like just like watching, and just like started like crying, like watching like the Star Wars video, and just like seeing people just open up in such a authentic and being vulnerable and expressing their vulnerability through just their honest reactions was just I don't know, it's just kind
Darth
of,
Vader definitely
just-
brings
yeah.
a subway car together for sure.
it was just wonderful.
Well, thank you for
Thank you.
answering my
Yeah.
questions.
Thank you.
I have more questions afterwards.
Cool. And so this is Tiffany from Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So we have a question from
Question
Rabav
from
from Dubai.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
From Dubai. So
we were supposed to do a collaboration together for the International Day of Happiness, and it fell through because of COVID, which is so
Oh,
unfortunate.
bummer.
But Tiffany, tell us our
Cool.
question.
So the question is, I would love to know, how do you handle funding? I have way too many ideas for interactive public art, but funding is always difficult.
I can go. I mean, in terms of funding, like really, there isn't much kind of production when it comes to the Subway Social Club. I mean, we have the pins, which are, I'm personally also in kind of like supply chain, so the pins themselves like aren't that expensive. So we don't really at this point kind of require funding actually.
And that was my strategy for definitely the first 5 years that I was doing Improv Everywhere. Was just everything was low budget, no budget. If we were making a video, it was because a friend had a camera and was down to come and hold that camera. And just designing things that were easy and lightweight, and not asking for permission, not paying a venue fee, and not paying for insurance, and paying for a lot of things that you probably should do. And as we've grown to be bigger and bigger, we have different ways of being funded. I mean, YouTube was a way that we were funded for a while. The ad revenue on YouTube. I mean, we have 2 million subscribers on our YouTube page, so that's not going to work for everyone, and it barely worked for us when it did work, and now I would say it probably doesn't work. There's really no guarantee when we put out a video that we would make enough ad revenue to cover our costs. So I look for different opportunities. I mean, sometimes for me, it's for the socially distanced office. There was no budget for that at all. I just paid for it because I wanted to do it, and I know that that's gonna, in the long run, there will be opportunities that come to me because of doing things like that. So that's always been my focus, is just make what you want to make, and make it with the resources you have, and make it as good as you can with the resources that you have. And if you keep working, it's sort of a snowball effect. And the thing that we did this past week, the Museum of the City of New York had reached out to us and wanted us to do something in tandem with their new exhibition. So opportunities like that are where we get a lot of our funding these days.
Yeah, for me, I self-fund mostly. You know that. But every once in a while, I'll have partnerships, like you're saying, that'll come in, and that helps fund more work. Certainly after the Sticky Note project blew up. I mean, I was doing work for almost a year before that. That was totally self-funded, but really only like $150 to set up a table and 2 chairs and pretend to be a therapist in the subway. And then, through that exploration, this project emerged that went viral, and then ended up getting a book deal, and sort of kind of spiraled off from there. But certainly, I guess the point I'm making is like that at the entry level, you can just kind of start.
Yeah, just greenlight yourself and go make something. And if it's some Sharpies and poster board, that's start there, and find collaborators too. I mean, find like-minded people who want to dedicate their time as well.
We have a question in person. Also, if anybody is asking questions or is speaking and jumps up, introduce yourself. We have an amazing network of creatives and individuals. Lucy, for example, is just an incredible pianist and musician, and is my piano teacher. I don't practice. I'm really sorry. I could be way better because she's an outstanding teacher. But put your put your website in the chat so people can find you. You can borrow someone's phone that's on the call. I know Andy's on the call, Amir's on the call, but Amir's going to come up and ask a question. Share, comment, be part of the conversation. Come join. He's the amazing founder of Future Meets Present, an incredible organization that does all of these events and he brings people together, and he has a vision for the future that we should have today, and he's bringing that to life, and I'm so grateful for that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So here you go.
All right. Thanks. Glad you got some audio tech because this is exactly the prep I'm gonna get you.
Okay. We could have had consistency.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to meet you,
Hi.
Amir.
Nice to meet you. Good morning. Good morning. Is it still morning?
Barely.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm originally from New Mexico, and I just wanted to come up because I appreciate what you're saying. You're from South Carolina,
Mhm.
and I definitely know what it's like when you show up to a place and you're smiling at people randomly and not really getting that feedback. And that's exactly how I felt when I came from New Mexico. It's like it's so easy for you to stand in line at CVS and just smile at someone and just like randomly start talking to them back home. And I couldn't do that here. I had moved to Williamsburg, I remember, and I was like smiling at people and no one was really giving me that feedback. I was like, I don't, okay, maybe I just haven't broken into New York yet. So I definitely resonate with that. I appreciate you sharing that. And I just remember like 2-3 weeks after moving here was when I experienced one of your events for the first time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was like August 2014, and you had done the colors, like the March of Colors or something. What was it called?
Was it in Fort Greene Park?
It was in Fort Greene
Yeah.
Park.
So our MP3 experiment project, but everybody was dressed. in,
Yes,
like,
yes, it was so good.
Yeah, single color outfits.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
It was incredible, and I just like it was cool to have this opportunity just to say hi. Thank you for creating that. And I don't know. I've just realized that in any creative endeavor, the reasons that you're doing it are actually really only like 10% of the outcome. Like there's just so much that you can't see on the other side, and who you're gonna touch, and what kind of conversations and connections are gonna be made as a result of that. And I just remember the other one that I had seen from you was the freeze in Grand Central Station.
Right.
And before I moved here, that's the kind of stuff that you would share with each other and be like, this is what they do in New York City. Like, this is what they do in New York. Like, I can't believe it, And then I have one of your pins.
Oh.
Yeah, because Andy gave it to me and it's on my nightstand. And it's just like all these little indicators. This is what people do in New York. And to get here 2 weeks later, being kind of confounded by like not really knowing how to integrate with this culture, and then suddenly being a part of this experiment that I saw on YouTube, was just, I don't know, it was like a really good entry for me into this culture, and you created that.
Well, thanks. I mean, that project's called the MP3 experiment, and we do it annually. We missed last year. Hopefully, we'll do it later this year. But it is it basically creates this thing that I like. I'm just talking about like after the the election where everybody's just smiling and everybody's together and strangers are smiling with each other, and that's a project where people are wearing headphones and listening to a pre-recorded voice and synchronized music. Telling you to do this, everybody drop to the ground at the same time, or everybody blow up a balloon at the same time. But it's nice because you can go by yourself and you're with a crowd of 2,000 people, but you're with a team. You feel like you're a part of something.
I remember I was wearing yellow that day. I didn't even realize I had that much yellow in my closet, but I did it, and it was really awesome. And I just, like, how often do I get to hang out in Prospect Park and sit in the middle of this wonderful meadow and just say hi and meet you and say what's up to whoever else is watching? This is really cool. Thank you for pulling this off, Matt. This is awesome.
And yeah, thank you also. I mean, we're lucky. New Mexico has lost you, but we've gained you.
Oh, look at yo.
So we're great. I'm grateful.
Yo, good luck. Maybe I'll see you guys in the subway.
Yeah, but also I think into like what you're talking about of I think New Yorkers, there's so much going on, and what I've realized is that someone who looks so closed off, once they're prompted a little bit, can be so open, and it really comes, I think, from within. Like you started your own project, and it's like about creating the world that you want to see, and understanding. I know, Charlie, you were like a comedian who like just moved and was 22 and realized that acting was difficult. I mean, in terms of getting jobs, and the competition was fierce, but like you created your own platform for change. And I think while New Yorkers can be very focused on their own thing, I think we also just show up for each other. Sure. And we show up for people who are passionate and who share what they're doing. And you create it, and people they love it, they'll follow, and you really do have to create what you envision.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so interesting too. And now that it's been 7 years after that initial funky couple of weeks, which ended up being funky couple of months, but there's something really important about just the recognition that I think, like whenever you travel into a different city and you completely know that you're taking on the observer's perspective as opposed to the participant, and you're like, okay, I'm here and I can see this culture and how they function. I'm a little bit outside of it and I can see it. And then over time, you kind of start to sort of participate in it. And then over time, you start creating the culture, right? Like
Right.
that's what happens. And then you sort of sink into that recognition of what all New Yorkers are seeing. And then it doesn't become about you anymore. It's just like you said, everyone's just sort of steadfast doing their thing. You recognize that, you see that in each other, and then you can co-create from there. And that I think is so transferable. And the way New Yorkers carry themselves just works everywhere, I think. And it's what makes the city so attractive. So I appreciate you saying that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Very cool. Cool. Thank you, Amir.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I want to be mindful of time, so we're going to wrap up again. You can go to futuremeetspresent.com. I think it's in the chat. Check out Amir's work; it's really incredible. Also, you're like, he's an award-winning DJ. Also,
Ah.
he's incredible. And while he was talking, I was imagining him like DJing this sweet like idea set. Like he's just his ideas are fun. It was fun. Love that. Thank you so much for being here. I want to do like some thank yous. I want to say thank you to all the people that worked on this project. Sarah, thank you for being here producing. Tiffany, thank you for hosting. Rei Chou, thank you for all of your help. And the Feast community at large is this incredible community that's helped this come to life. Art Plus People is my organization. We do experience design and support artists that do inventive public work in public space. Let me know if you ever need anything. I will show up and just be a pair of hands if nothing else. Charlie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Matthew.
Really, and Claire, both of you are such an inspiration to me, and I think
Likewise.
that there's so much synergy. Even just seeing your work inspires me to do other work, and I think that's really amazing. Is there anything you want to share? Plug anything that you'd like, something that's coming up, something that's exciting. Please, if we can do Subway Social Club in the chat, Tiffany, if you can put that in, that would be amazing. Or anybody that's listening, subwaysocialclub.com, and then improveverywhere.com.
Yeah,
that correct?
improveverywhere.com. Sign up for our mailing list. We have you can click I live in New York participant list and come out and be a part of our next thing.
Yeah, thanks. And also, if you are looking to ride the subway and want to kind of maybe start your own conversations or see how I start them, I'd love to ride with you. Yeah.
Cool.
And
Thanks,
thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for tuning in online in person. Yay. This concludes our first conversation in the park. What do we call it?
This is the Long Meadow.
Long
Yeah.
Meadow.
No, but you said something earlier.
Live from the Long Meadow.
Live from the Long Meadow. It was quite good. All right, friends.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.